The autumn wind swept through Windsor Great Park as William stood at the window of Adelaide Cottage, his hands clasped behind his back. Kate found him there in the early morning light, watching their children play in the garden that had witnessed so many of their family's most difficult moments. The four-bedroom home that had promised a fresh start just 2 years earlier now held memories that seemed to press against the walls themselves. George, Charlotte, and Louis laughed as they chased each other around the old oak tree, their joy a bright spot against the weight their parents carried. Kate moved to stand beside her husband, her hand finding his. Neither spoke for a moment, both understanding what the other was thinking without words. The cottage had seemed perfect when they first saw it in the summer of 2022. Away from the goldfish bowl of Kensington Palace, it offered their children space to run and play, to be children without the constant scrutiny of London life. The gardens were beautiful, the rooms filled with light, and the proximity to Windsor meant they could balance their royal duties with the privacy they craved for their young family. But fate had other plans. Just weeks after they moved in, everything changed. The Queen, who had welcomed them to Windsor with such warmth, passed away. William remembered that September day with crystal clarity, the phone call, the rush to Balmoral, the weight of grief mixed with the sudden realization that his father was now king, and he was one step closer to a throne he had always known would one day be his. Adelaide Cottage, which should have been filled with the sounds of a family settling into their new life, instead became the place where they processed their grief. The children asked questions about great-granny, and William and Kate found themselves explaining death to young minds while managing their own sorrow. Then came December, bringing with it a different kind of storm. Harry and Meghan's documentary aired, reopening wounds and creating new ones. William would walk the grounds of Adelaide Cottage late at night, his mobile phone clutched in his hand, wrestling with whether to call his brother. Kate watched him struggle, offering comfort when he would accept it, giving him space when he needed it. The new year brought no respite. Harry's memoir hit the shelves in January, and with it came revelations and accusations that cut deep. Every room in Adelaide Cottage seemed to echo with the weight of family discord. The study where William worked became a refuge, but also a reminder of the distance between brothers who had once been inseparable. Spring arrived with hope, as it always does, but it brought news that would shake their foundation once more. Kate's diagnosis came like a thunderbolt on a clear day. The doctors were optimistic, speaking of early detection and excellent prognosis, but the word cancer hung in the air like a specter. William felt his world tilt on its axis. The months that followed tested them in ways they never imagined. Kate faced her treatment with remarkable grace, but William saw the moments when the mask slipped, the exhaustion, the fear, the determination to be strong for their children. Adelaide Cottage became both sanctuary and prison, a place where she could recover in private, but also where every corner reminded them of this battle they were fighting. Charles's own cancer diagnosis added another layer of complexity. Father and son, both dealing with the failing health of those they loved most, found new understanding in their shared worry. But it also meant more responsibility fell on William's shoulders at a time when he wanted nothing more than to focus on his wife and children. The children, resilient as children always are, adapted to the new rhythms of their household. They learned to be quieter on Mummy's tired days, to give extra hugs without being asked, to find joy in small moments. George, growing more mature by the day, took on the role of protective big brother with touching seriousness. By autumn of 2024, as Kate's treatment concluded successfully, William made a decision. They needed a fresh start, a new beginning unmarked by the trials of the past 2 years. Forest Lodge, another property on the Windsor estate, was available. It would need work, significant renovations to make it suitable for their family, but it represented something Adelaide Cottage could no longer offer. Hope unmarred by painful memories. The announcement of their move was kept quiet. shared only with close family and the staff who would need to know. But as William stood at that window, watching his children play, he felt the weight of leaving. Not because he would miss the cottage, every room held a memory he would rather forget, but because leaving felt like closing a chapter they had never wanted to write. Kate understood. She had spent long hours in the garden during her recovery, finding solace in the flowers and the changing seasons. But even the garden, beautiful as it was, couldn't erase the associations. Every bench where she had sat feeling ill, every path where she had walked to build back her strength, every window she had looked through during the long days of treatment, they all told a story of survival, but also of suffering. The builders began work on Forest Lodge in September, working with unusual urgency. William and Kate had made it clear they wanted to move before Christmas, to give their children a fresh start in the new year. The workers, understanding the significance of their task, threw themselves into the project with dedication that went beyond professional duty. As October turned to November, the family prepared for their move with mixed emotions. The children were excited about their new home, making lists of how they wanted to decorate their rooms. But William and Kate felt the weight of what they were leaving behind. Not just a house, but a testament to their resilience, a place where they had been tested and had survived. In quiet moments, they would find each other's gaze and understand. They had made it through. Scarred, perhaps, changed, certainly, but intact. Their marriage had been tested by public scrutiny, family betrayal, and life-threatening illness. Yet here they stood, ready to begin again. The cottage that had witnessed so much would soon house new memories for another family. But for William and Kate, the time had come to say goodbye to the shadows and step into a future they would write themselves. One unmarked by tragedy and filled with the promise of better days. As November progressed, the renovations at Forest Lodge neared completion. The builders worked tirelessly, understanding that they weren't just renovating a house, they were creating a fresh canvas for a family that had endured more than most would in a lifetime. And William and Kate, watching their children's excitement grow with each passing day, began to feel something they hadn't experienced in 2 years within the walls of Adelaide Cottage: uncomplicated joy. The plan came to Kate during one of her morning walks through Windsor Great Park. She had been watching the builders arrive at Forest Lodge in the early dawn light, their breath visible in the cold November air. These men and women had been working round the clock for weeks, transforming what would be their new home with a dedication that touched her deeply. She knew they understood the significance of their work, though nothing had been explicitly said. That evening, as William returned from a day of engagements, Kate shared her idea. They should do something special for these people who were quite literally building their future. Not a formal reception or a stiff royal thank you, but something genuine, personal, something that reflected who they really were beneath the titles and protocol. William's face lit up immediately. It was so perfectly Kate, this impulse to acknowledge the human beings behind the work. They began planning that very night, after the children had gone to bed, sitting at their kitchen table with mugs of tea and a notepad between them. The York Club seemed the perfect venue. The members-only pub near Windsor Great Park was discreet, cozy, and unpretentious, everything a formal palace reception was not. William made the arrangements himself, calling the proprietor personally, explaining they needed the space for a private gathering. The proprietor, understanding the delicate nature of the request, assured complete discretion. The guest list grew as they thought about everyone who had made this transition possible. Not just the builders and construction crews, but the architects who had worked on the plans, the project managers who had coordinated everything, the security team who had ensured privacy during the renovations, even the local suppliers who had provided materials. Each person had played a part in creating their fresh start. Kate insisted on personal touches. She spent hours writing individual thank you notes, each one specific to the recipient's contribution. For the lead carpenter who had crafted beautiful built-in bookcases for George's room, she mentioned how her son had already planned which books would go where. For the landscape team who had worked on the gardens, she wrote about how she looked forward to seeing their vision bloom in spring. William took charge of the refreshments, determined they should be hearty and warming, proper pub food, nothing fancy or formal. He remembered his grandmother's words about how a good gathering was about making people comfortable, not impressing them. Shepherd's pie, fish and chips, warm apple crumble, comfort food that said thank you better than any 5-course meal could. The afternoon of the gathering arrived gray and chilly, typical November weather. William and Kate arrived at the York Club early, wanting to be there to greet each guest personally. They had told their staff they would handle everything themselves tonight. No footmen, no ladies-in-waiting, just William and Kate saying thank you in their own way. As the builders and workers began arriving, many seemed initially uncertain. They were used to seeing the Prince and Princess of Wales in formal settings, at official engagements where protocol reigned supreme. But William met them at the door with warm handshakes and genuine smiles, while Kate took coats and offered drinks, her natural warmth immediately putting everyone at ease. The pub filled with conversation and laughter. William moved through the room with pints of beer, topping up glasses and joining conversations about everything from football to the challenges of laying period-appropriate flooring. He listened with genuine interest as the chief electrician explained the complexity of updating the wiring while maintaining the historical integrity of the house. Kate found herself in deep conversation with the team who had designed Charlotte's room, her eyes lighting up as they described the special reading nook they had created by the window. She shared stories of her daughter's love of books, her tendency to create elaborate plays with her dolls, her insistence that her room needed plenty of pink, but not too much. As the evening progressed, the initial formality melted away entirely. Someone had brought a darts board, and soon William was engaged in a competitive game with several of the younger builders, his competitive streak showing as he lined up his shots with intense concentration. The sound of his triumphant cheer when he hit a bullseye brought laughter from across the room. Kate circulated with plates of food, insisting everyone eat, mothering them the way she did her own children. She sat with the older craftsmen, listening to their stories of other historical properties they had worked on, their pride in their trade evident in every word. When she learned that one carpenter's daughter was struggling with school anxiety, she spent 20 minutes sharing her own experiences with childhood worries and offering gentle advice. The project manager, a woman named Sarah, who had coordinated the entire renovation, found herself in tears when Kate pulled her aside to thank her personally. Sarah had been working 16-hour days to meet the deadline, missing her own daughter's school play in the process. Kate pressed a small, wrapped gift into her hands, tickets to a Christmas pantomime for Sarah's entire family, with a note saying she hoped this would make up for the missed performance. As the evening wore on, phones appeared and pictures were requested. William and Kate obliged happily, posing with small groups, their arms around shoulders, genuine smiles on their faces. These weren't official photographs, but personal memories, the kind taken at family gatherings and friendly get-togethers. The head builder, a man named Tommy who had been in construction for 40 years, made an impromptu speech. His words were simple but heartfelt, talking about how, in all his years of work, he had never seen clients who understood so clearly that buildings were made by people, not machines. He spoke of how William had learned all their names, how Kate had sent hot tea and biscuits on cold mornings, how they had been treated not as hired help, but as partners in creating something important. William responded with his own words, informal and from the heart. He spoke about second chances, about the importance of home, about how grateful he and Kate were to everyone in the room for helping them create a new beginning. His voice caught slightly when he mentioned that his children would grow up in the space these people had created, that birthdays and Christmases and ordinary Tuesday mornings would all happen within walls built with such care. Kate added her own thoughts, talking about how a house becomes a home, not just through bricks and mortar, but through the love and intention put into its creation. She thanked them for understanding, without being told, why this move mattered so much to their family. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she spoke about fresh starts and the gift of being able to look forward instead of back. As the evening drew to a close, William and Kate stationed themselves by the door, determined to say goodbye to each person individually. Hugs were exchanged freely, promises to stay in touch made sincerely. Many of the workers would later say it was one of the most memorable evenings of their lives, not because they had met royalty, but because they had spent time with two people who had shown them genuine appreciation and warmth. The last to leave was Tommy, the head builder. He shook William's hand firmly, then surprised them both by saying, "That cottage you're leaving, it might have been cursed for you, but you've blessed our new work with your kindness. Forest Lodge will be a happy home. I can feel it." After everyone had gone, William and Kate stood in the empty pub for a moment, his arm around her shoulders. They had given their guests more than food and drink that evening. They had given them a glimpse of who they really were beneath the titles and duties. And in return, they had received something precious, the knowledge that their new home had been built not just with skill, but with genuine care and understanding. The drive back to Adelaide Cottage was quiet, both of them processing the evening. Tomorrow would bring more packing, more preparations for the move. But tonight had been about gratitude, about acknowledging that even in their privileged position, they relied on the kindness and skill of others to create the life they wanted for their children. As they pulled into the driveway of Adelaide Cottage, Kate reached for William's hand. In just a few days they would close this chapter forever. But tonight had shown them that endings could be as meaningful as beginnings, that saying goodbye with grace and gratitude could transform a painful departure into something almost beautiful. The builders and workers had given them a new home. They had given them an evening of genuine human connection. It seemed a fair exchange. Moving day dawned crisp and clear, one of those perfect November mornings when frost sparkles on grass and breath forms clouds in the cold air. The children had been awake since dawn, too excited to sleep, running between their rooms to check that nothing had been forgotten. George, ever the responsible older brother, had made lists for himself and his siblings, carefully ticking off items as they were packed. Kate found William in their bedroom at Adelaide Cottage, standing by the window where he had spent so many restless nights during the hardest months. His hand rested on the windowsill, and she knew he was saying his own private goodbye to this place that had sheltered them through the storm. The moving trucks had arrived early, but William and Kate had insisted on packing their most personal items themselves. In their bedroom, Kate carefully wrapped the small china figurine that had sat on her bedside table throughout her treatment, a gift from Charlotte, who had said it would keep Mummy company. William packed the leather journal where he had poured out his fears and hopes during the darkest days, its pages a testament to a journey no one else would ever read. Louis, barely understanding the significance of the day, ran through the emptying rooms with the pure joy of a child on an adventure. His laughter echoed off bare walls, bringing unexpected lightness to the morning. Charlotte, more sensitive to the emotions around her, held her mother's hand tightly, occasionally offering comfort with wisdom beyond her years. George helped his father carry boxes, his determination to be helpful touching. At one point, William found him in his empty room looking thoughtful. When asked what he was thinking, George replied simply, "I'm glad we're all going together." The profound truth of that statement, that they were all going, all healthy, all whole, wasn't lost on his parents. The final walk through Adelaide Cottage was done as a family. Each room held its stories, its ghosts, its memories, both bitter and sweet. The kitchen, where Kate had forced herself to eat during chemotherapy, determined to maintain strength for her children. The living room, where they had gathered for quiet evenings when the outside world felt too much to bear. The garden where William had paced during phone calls with doctors, with his father, with advisors trying to manage public communications about their private pain. But there were good memories, too. Kate reminded them all. Birthday celebrations, bedtime stories, lazy Sunday mornings when the world had briefly left them alone. Louis took it upon himself to say goodbye to each room, waving solemnly and chirping, "Bye-bye kitchen, bye-bye stairs." His innocent ritual brought smiles through the emotion. The short drive to Forest Lodge felt monumental. As they rounded the final bend and their new home came into view, the children pressed against the car windows in excitement. The house stood welcoming in the morning sun, its freshly painted exterior gleaming, the new windows reflecting the clear sky like promises of brighter days. Tommy and several of his crew were there to meet them, unable to resist seeing the family's arrival at the home they had poured so much effort into. The genuine joy on their faces as the children tumbled from the car, racing to explore, was reward enough for all their extra hours and careful work. The front door opened to reveal a home that somehow already felt warm and welcoming. Kate's eyes immediately filled with tears, happy ones this time, as she saw how perfectly the builders had interpreted their vision. The entrance hall was bright and airy, with hooks at just the right height for little coats and a bench where muddy boots could be removed. Each child raced to their new room, their delighted squeals echoing through the house. Charlotte's reading nook was even more perfect than imagined, with built-in shelves and a window seat overlooking the garden. George's room had the organizational systems he loved, everything in its place, ready for his collections and projects. Louis's space was cheerful and secure, with rounded corners and child-safe features disguised as playful design elements. The master bedroom, when William and Kate finally made their way upstairs, took their breath away. The builders had positioned the bed to catch the morning light, installed window seats where they could sit with their tea, created a sanctuary that spoke of peace and new beginnings. Kate ran her fingers along the smooth wood of the built-in wardrobes, marveling at the craftsmanship. Throughout the day, as boxes were unpacked and familiar items found new homes, the house began its transformation into their home. Neighbors stopped by with welcoming gifts, homemade jam, fresh flowers, a football for the children signed by the local youth team. Each gesture, small in itself, wove them into the fabric of their new community. The kitchen, heart of any family home, quickly became command central. Kate organized with military precision while maintaining the warmth that made it inviting. William hung the children's artwork on the new refrigerator, the bright colors bringing instant personality to the space. The old kettle, veteran of countless cups of tea through difficult times, found its place on the new stove, a bridge between past and future. As afternoon faded to evening, the family gathered in their new living room. The furniture was arranged, pictures hung on walls, toys already scattered in corners. It looked like they had lived there for years rather than hours. The children, exhausted from excitement and activity, curled up on the sofa as William lit the fireplace for the first time. The flames cast dancing shadows on the walls as Kate produced a special dinner. Nothing fancy, just their family favorites ordered from the local pub. But she had also prepared a surprise. From a carefully packed box, she produced a bottle of champagne and 5 glasses, proper ones for the adults, special plastic ones for the children filled with apple juice. William raised his glass, his voice thick with emotion as he spoke. He talked about journeys and destinations, about storms weathered and sunshine ahead. He thanked his children for their resilience, their joy, their ability to find happiness even in difficult times. He looked at Kate, his eyes saying what words couldn't about her strength, her grace, her refusal to let illness define their family story. Kate added her own toast, simpler but no less heartfelt. "To our new home," she said, "and to all the happy memories we're going to make here." The children clinked their glasses enthusiastically, Louis managing to spill only a little of his apple juice on the new carpet. As bedtime approached, each child was tucked into their new bed with extra stories and cuddles. The familiarity of beloved teddies and blankets in unfamiliar rooms bridged the gap between old and new. George, fighting sleep, murmured that he liked hearing different sounds outside his window. Charlotte fell asleep clutching the book she had been reading, peaceful in her custom-made nook. Louis, true to form, was asleep before his head hit the pillow, worn out from the day's adventures. Later, William and Kate stood in their own bedroom, looking out at the grounds of their new home. The moon had risen, casting silver light across the gardens that would bloom come spring. They could see the children's play area, the space marked for Kate's future vegetable garden, the paths where they would walk and talk and plan and dream. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with shared understanding. They had left behind a house marked by some of the hardest chapters of their lives. But they had brought with them everything that mattered: their love, their children, their hope, their determination to write a better story. Kate leaned into William's embrace, feeling the solid warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart. They had faced the unthinkable and survived. Cancer, family betrayal, public scrutiny, private anguish, all of it had tested them, changed them, but not broken them. "The children were so happy today," Kate murmured, her voice soft in the quiet room. "They were," William agreed, his arms tightening around her. "We all were." And it was true. For the first time in 2 years, the shadow that had followed them had lifted. Forest Lodge represented more than new walls and fresh paint. It was a declaration that life goes on, that joy can follow sorrow, that families can emerge from crisis stronger than before. As they prepared for bed in their new room, small rituals brought comfort. William's slippers in their new spot by the bed, Kate's hand cream on the bedside table, the familiar rhythm of their nighttime routine in an unfamiliar space. These small continuities bridged past and future, reminding them that home is more than a building. The house settled around them with small creaks and sighs, the sounds of a building learning its new family. Outside, an owl called across the grounds, a wild, free sound that spoke of nature and continuity and life carrying on regardless of human dramas. In the children's rooms, 3 small forms slept peacefully, already at home in their new spaces. Their parents, lying in their new bed in their new room in their new home, allowed themselves something they hadn't dared in 2 years: uncomplicated optimism about tomorrow. The goodbye to Adelaide Cottage had been necessary, a closing of a chapter written in tears and uncertainty. But as Forest Lodge embraced them on this first night, William and Kate understood that some goodbyes are really hellos in disguise. They had said farewell to a house that had seen too much sorrow. They had said hello to a home where joy would live. The last thought Kate had before sleep claimed her was of the builders and workers who had made this possible. Their care, their understanding, their skill had created more than a house. They had built a bridge between a difficult past and a hopeful future. And tomorrow, when the sun rose on Forest Lodge, it would illuminate not an ending, but a beginning, not a retreat, but an advance into whatever comes next, together.